All right, welcome to Speaking Out of Turn. As you can see, it's just Rob today. Darren has moved across country and is getting settled in and taking care of some personal stuff. So I'm going to do a little something different. I'm going to cover Kiss. It's a band Darren doesn't really follow. Um, there's so many Kiss podcasts out there, and everybody's got an opinion, and for the most part, they're way different than mine. So I figured I'd give my take on a topic that's always popular on YouTube. Stay tuned and we'll get into some best and worst of the Kiss albums. Okay, so let's get started here. I'll give you just a little background of my history with Kiss. Um, I first discovered them, I was actually probably about 5 years old. So about 77, 78, somewhere in there. My brother had the Destroyer album, and he's a few years older than me. Um, and the cover just mesmerized me, and I kind of got hooked ever since. So I was always playing catch up with the older catalog as the newer ones came out. So basically, I lived through the original makeup, little bits here and there on TV. I saw the Kiss Me Savannah when it was first aired and all that good stuff. But primarily, my influential years, always with most people, is your teen years. So, of course, mine was the non makeup years. But we did everything as a kid. We dressed up as Kiss. We do cardboard cutout guitars and pretend we were Kiss, cranking, Alive 2 on the stereo and Alive 1. And so I love both genres of the band. I also am not one of these holier than thou original four guys. To me, very few bands can keep all their members. It just doesn't happen. And I don't want to hear but their characters and it's their makeup and this. I don't care. To me, the band when I first got into them, Ace Frehley was my favorite because he looked the coolest. Once I was old enough to understand that every song I loved was because of Paul Stanley's voice, he became basically the idol for the next 20 years of my life. So as long as Paul's there, Gene, I guess, that's Kiss. The other two, yes, they contributed. Yes, they helped form it. Yes, all that good stuff. I don't care. Paul and Gene are the heart and soul of Kiss. They're the voice of Kiss. End of discussion. So anyway, moving on. Um, I kind of dropped off. I was really excited. It was actually kind of a double-edged sword for me when the reunion was announced. I mean, I really enjoyed the Unplugged show, but I love non-makeup Kiss. I thought Paul was the coolest motherfucker on the planet. By Revenge, they all looked badass. They had this kick-ass blonde member for the first time ever playing drums, and Eric Singer. I was stoked. I loved Revenge. I loved everything about it. I went to the Hot in the Shade tour twice before that album, and that tour just kicked ass. I mean, they were just at their pinnacle for me. And then you hear about the reunion. So, I was excited. The first concert I ever went to was Creatures of the Night. Geez, I don't know. It's probably 10, maybe. And that was cool, and I'll never forget it. It's one of the greatest memories of my life. But of course, in makeup, that was Eric Carr, and actually, we got the first show here in Bismarck, North Dakota, for Vinnie Vincent. He was supposed to debut the first show in, I think, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Sioux Falls or Rapid, one of the two. But it got snowed out, or there was a big snowstorm or whatever, so we got it. And of course, I'm there, and there's no internet, and I'm 10 years old, so I read all the books, Circus, Hit Parader, and all that. But I don't remember seeing that there was a member change. I remember seeing that there were problems with Ace in the band, but that was about it. So when they got on the stage, I was kind of confused because I knew that wasn't Ace's makeup, but I thought maybe did he just change makeup? It wasn't until later on after that that I had read or saw something that this Vinnie Vincent guy had taken Ace's place. because on the cover of Creatures of the Night, of course, it says Freely. So I was not expecting any changes at all. So I was excited for the reunion because I never got to see all four originals in makeup. And like everybody else, I got goosebumps. It was teary eyed. It was front row. Saw it twice. Amazing experience. But in my mind, I wanted them to do that reunion and go back to the Revenge lineup. Little did I know, Carnival of Souls is what they put out, which was nothing like Revenge before the reunion. But anyway, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is I love both eras of the band. I just kind of checked out right around that. I was excited for Psycho Circus to have the original four on the album. And let me make it clear. I listened to some other Kiss podcasts, and for those of them judging it because it's not all four members playing on the album, I don't give a shit about that. I got a news flash for all of them, especially one podcast in particular where they seem to think they're so plugged into the industry, they know every in and out. There's not a damn band on the planet who has played every note, every original member on any album ever. It's called studio musicians. It's called getting it done right, getting it done as quick as possible because the cost per hour is fucking through the roof. There are ringer players who make a career and a damn good career doing just that for these bands. So anybody who thinks that their favorite band plays every note on every album doesn't know shit. So anyway, I don't care about that. That don't bother me that Ace and Peter did very little work at all on Psycho Circus. I just don't think it was a strong album. I think it was overly cheesy. Uh, Anywhere from my Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll. I mean, that's lame. You wanted the best, you got the best was something you'd hear on Nickelodeon, and it was cheesy. I mean, I like the idea of the original four members all singing a verse here and there, but overall, just a corny, cheesy song. Psycho Circus was obviously awesome, is awesome to this day. Um, but that's around the time I started to check out because it just seemed a little forced to me. Um, really was a step back musically from Revenge, and certainly didn't measure up, for being the original four to anything they did in the 70s or even early 80s. So after that, they started coming out with albums that just weren't up my alley. And we'll get to all of that. So basically, what I'm saying is, I was a huge diehard Kiss fan my entire life up until around Psycho Circus, and it started to fade. Not that I didn't like them; I still went to the shows when I had a chance. I still kept up with their music, but it just they were no longer the forefront of my musical life. Um, anyway, with that, I am going to get to my top five worst Kiss albums. Now, in some cases, these aren't going to be the worst because I hate them. They're going to be the worst because I seldom listen to them. I seldom, when making a song list, I seldom grab anything from these albums. So, starting with number five being not the worst, we're going to go ahead and, let's see, Rock and Roll Over. Now, this is going to make some people mad. But to me, even as a kid, when I was playing catch up and I got this, I never really cared for it. I didn't hate it, but it just didn't stand out to me. There was nothing on it that I thought was really great. Uh, to me, Baby Driver is one of Peter's worst songs. I've always hated Dr. Love. Hard Luck Woman is eh. I Want You is a cool tune, but it's one of those where I really got to be in the mood for it. Ladies' Room, I could never stand that song. Love 'em, Leave 'em, I thought was great. Um, Making Love, I've never understood Kiss fans' love for this song. I think it's a mess. It's sporadic. It's way too windy, or like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like he needs to take a breath, let the lyrics breathe. It's just the chorus is brutal. Mr. Speed's a pretty good tune. See You in My Dreams, I love with Paul punching in, echoing Gene's lyrics. And Take Me, I could take it or leave it, no pun intended. So, like I said, it's not a horrible album. It just, for me, really didn't do much. Moving on to my number four, we've got Psycho Circus, which I touched on earlier. I just find it overall cheesy. Um, I didn't care for Ace's song. I didn't care for Peter's song. The only song I really love and put on, mixes and look forward to hearing live is Psycho Circus. Other than that, Raise Your Glasses is a pretty cool tune. Again, I don't hate the album. It's just not something I would put on purpose. I don't really grab anything off this album for a mix other than Psycho Circus. So once in a while, Raise Your Glasses has been on my list, but that's pretty much it for that. Moving on to number three, Sonic Boom. Now, this, I thought initially it'd be kind of cool that they re recorded some tracks, and they probably did that just so they could get some, publishing rights to new recordings or whatever. But most of them fell flat. I mean, they sounded decent, but they were really unprofessionally done. I can't remember which song it is, but it almost like it starts in the middle of a chord instead of the beginning of the song. And Hotter Than Hell was cool because I like that because Hotter Than Hell, the album quality is terrible. So it was kind of cool to have something, with some good quality to it. But the mixed tracks are just a bonus. The songs itself, I really, really like Say Yeah, despite what others think. I think it is classic Paul Stanley. Um, I like Never Enough. I think that is an upbeat rock and grooving tune. I love that song. I like Russian Roulette from Gene. Um, again, the Tommy and Eric stuff. It's it's okay, but it's just kind of generic. I don't know. Again, nothing really stands out on this, and if I do grab anything, it's usually Say Yeah, Never Enough, and once in a while Russian Roulette. I think what are we moving on to number two, Carnival of Souls, the controversial album. Initially, other than being surprised, the first song I heard on this was actually on the radio, Jungle. It's kind of cool. I mean, it's Paul at his ultimate badass best. It's a little heavier than I like to go, but I thought, it's pretty cool. So I get the album, and it starts out with Hate, which might be one of the worst fucking songs I've ever heard. That's by somebody not named Metallica. Uh, Terrible attempt of trying to be something the band is not. Um, I love the ballad that Paul wrote for his son, I believe. I Will Be There. It's a great, great song. Might be one of his best ballads since his original '78 solo album. Other than that, I mean, I love the scream in Master and the Slave, in the middle of the song or towards the end of the song. But the album's just not my style. I thought I Walk Alone is pretty cool with Bruce. I mean, the vocals aren't the greatest. He's a little monotone, just like Ace. How fitting is that? But musically, it was pretty cool. But I just don't have much time for this album either because, first of all, grunge ain't my style. This really wasn't grunge to me. It doesn't sound anything like, Nirvana or any of that stuff. It was just unnecessary attempt to try to stay in the relevant scene, which you don't have to do when you're Kiss, when you're Aerosmith, when you're Ozzy and AC/DC. You can stay in your lane. Sure, you may not be the biggest band in the world, but your fans are your fans, and your music is good, and it's gonna stand. I mean, it can stand on its own. You don't have to be chasing the trends that drastically, but again, the album did nothing for me. Not overly horrible, just I would never pick anything off this ever for a mix compilation. And to number one, we've got Monster. Now, I've been pretty nice. This album is absolutely unlistenable. This is not only a terrible Kiss album, this is a terrible album with terrible songs and a terrible production. The whole thing just sucks. Horrible. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with this thing. Paul needs to stop thinking he's good enough to produce their albums because clearly he is not any longer. The fucking thing is I'm a freak. What the hell is this shit? There was no good choruses in there. There's no strong choruses, no good hooks, no good melodies, no harmonies, no nothing. It was just garbage. And it takes a lot to outdo your horrific attempt with Carnival of Souls. And this Monster album does it in spades. I hate it from open to close. There is not one fucking track that I would ever listen to on purpose, and if it ever came on, I would shut it off immediately. Worst Kiss album, hands down. I'm glad that Paul decided that, he don't love music enough to make new music because God forbid it wouldn't sell as well as the old ones and people might still want to hear their hits or it won't sell. Whatever his fucking pathetic excuse is nowadays with his get off my lawn attitude. I'm glad he hung it up now with this no making new music because other than his Soul Station garbage. But if this is the best you can do, then yeah, it's time to not record anymore. So anyway, I've shit on them enough for that segment. We're going to go on now to what I think are, well, shit. Let me go back. I did have an honorable mention for one I could have put on this list, and I'm sure it would have pissed off pretty much every Kiss fan who's ever existed. I didn't put it on. I'll explain. So here's an honorable mention that could have been on my worst list. That's right. Kiss, the original debut album. Now, there are several reasons, and as a rule, I don't like to judge an album by production. I think that is a cop out when these podcasts are doing that. You got to remember what year it was. You got to remember technology, all that stuff. But my biggest problem with this album ain't so much the songs. It's like they're playing in quicksand. These songs are so goddamn slow on the album that they're almost unlistenable. I mean, songs that are really good live, but this album, it just sounds like you're just dragging down. I don't know why they were playing so damn slow. There are songs I can't stand, never could stand, never understood why anybody liked them. 100,000 Years comes to mind. Deuce, I hate that goddamn song. I've hated it since I was a kid. It is a horrible fucking song. It makes no goddamn sense. Nobody to this day can tell you what the fuck a deuce is. It's stupid. Firehouse is weak, boring, down. It's just horrible. Kissing Time, I actually kind of enjoyed. It was a pretty good tune. Excuse me. Let Me Know, boring. Love Theme from Kiss, brutal. Nothing to Lose, one of their greatest songs, especially on Kiss It Unplugged when Eric Singer sang it. Unbelievable song. Strutter, another overrated song. So the songs are not all terrible. There's a handful of good ones, but not in this recorded version. So that's why it could have been on there. It wouldn't have been solely the material. It was just the delivery of these songs in the studio was terribly, terribly slow, and it made them a very boring listen. Okay, now let's get to my favorites. So number, where are we at? Five. We've got Destroyer. Most people probably have this up around one or two, and at the time, I probably would have too. As a young kid, over the years, I don't know if it's a product of overplayed, overheard, overdone live. I don't know. I still love this album. It's just not one I go too much. Again, it's probably the overplayed factor. Um, the only song I really don't care for on this album would be Beth. To me, a horrible song. Now, on the reunion tour, when that piano hit for the first time in how many decades, yeah, I got goosebumps just because of what it meant, what it was, how legendary the song is. But personally, I would turn the radio station before the second note got hit. I never liked that goddamn song. Sweet Pain's okay. I don't know why people shit on that so much, and I definitely don't get why people shit on Great Expectations. Okay, so the lyrics are a little cheesy, but that harmony and that melody is just beautiful, and it just gave me goosebumps on a live for the symphony when they had the children's choir out there. Oh man, that's some powerful stuff. If you can't appreciate that song beyond your disdain for the cheesy lyrics, if you can't appreciate the music of that song, you don't know much about music. I'm sorry, you got no soul. But anyway, really great album, top notch, a lot of hits, but not one I reach for, not one I figure in the mixes that much. Other than to me, the most underrated song in the Kiss catalog, which is Flamin' Youth. I absolutely love that. Okay, moving on next. Asylum. I love this album. Absolutely killer Paul songs. Gene, Trial by Fire might be one of his greatest non makeup and maybe one of his greatest songs, period. I just love the groove of this album. I love the sound of this album. Like I said, Paul's on top of his game. Absolutely love his vocals. I pretty much Tears Are Fallen's in my top three favorite Kiss songs of all time. I love All Night. Again, to those people who like to judge a song by corny lyrics, you show me a goddamn band in the '80s that wasn't singing about fucking. All right, get over yourself. It's a great song. It's a guitar riff that's just kick ass. When they bring it down in the middle after the guitar solo, oh, it's just awesome. So great album, tons of good tunes on it. Next, music from the Elder, and I'm sorry to every die hard who was so embarrassed by this. You can go get bent. This thing is a musical masterpiece. Starts out heavier than they had been at this point with the oath. Unfucking believable song. Great, great guitar riff to start an album out. And Just a Boy, one of the best. Just sit back and feel the melody songs I have ever heard. The falsetto that Paul has is unbelievable. People who don't like that song, again, do not have a soul for music. All they care about is throwing their little devil horns up and saying, "Yeah." Learn to love music, people. Only You, masterpiece. Under the Rose might be one of the most, I mean, that'll make Pink Floyd blush for being able to just sit back and fucking get lost in the moment. I mean, it's just the feeling in that song is unbelievable. Blackwell is kick ass. World Without Heroes, I can take it or leave it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. Uh, that goddamn stupid Escape from the Island. I am not an instrumental person. I never have been. I don't give a fuck who it is, and that one sucks. Dark Lights, pretty okay for Ace. Uh, Odyssey gets shit on a lot, and I don't understand why. People who want to mock Paul's voice on that, give it a try once, assholes. Seriously, give it a fucking try. See if you can do it. That is as close as he'd come to this point to doing what he did with Phantom of the Opera, or even his duet with Sarah Brightman. That is damn near classically trained operatic sound from him. And if you can't appreciate what he's put, you might not like it, but if you can't appreciate the vocal talent that took to do that fucking song, again, you don't know music. Um, I loved as a kid. Now I think it's kind of cheesy and kind of, you know, doesn't do it for me anymore. But unbelievable album. Always got songs represented on my list. I can listen to this front to back, minus the instrumental, any day of the week. One of the most influential albums for me. I used to just open that cover, that gatefold, and see that darkly lit table and just sit back with those tunes, put some colored lights on. Oh man, this album was the shit when I was a kid, and it still is. Moving on, lick it up. To me, this album is what Kiss should have always been. Um, Head and Shoulders. These next two albums are head and shoulders above anything they ever did in the '70s. No one's gonna change my mind. I don't give a shit if you were a teenager in 1975, so you grew up with the Dark Kiss, the first 3 albums. I don't care. This first of all, minus Ace and Peter, I don't care which member you plug in. Mark St. John, Vinnie Vincent, Bruce Kulick, Eric Carr, Eric Singer. Doesn't matter. Tommy Thayer. This band got musically better tenfold as soon as those 2 guys were gone. Not saying I hate them. I'm saying they were not the musicians, and you could clearly see once the replacements started coming in, how Kiss's music just skyrocketed as far as talent-wise. And this album is a stone cold killer. I mean, from top to bottom, you can't find a bad song on this album. One of my all-time favorites, obviously, it's at number 2. Paul's goddamn incredible. Gene is a bad, bad bro on this sucker. Vinny's work was awesome. I love this album. Can't rave about it enough. On to number 1. That's right. Creatures of the Night. The heaviest Kiss album, the best Kiss album. It's dark, it's heavy, it's intense. I Still Love You, even with that ballad, is just full of soul and oh, just powerful vocals. Everything about this album is killer. Period. Those last 2 albums, Creatures in the Night and Lick It Up, I tell you what, you are not gonna find a better 1-2 from any band on the planet. Not up against other bands, just no other band, in my opinion, has had a strong 1-2 punch like that in a row. Has not happened. You could talk about Bon Jovi. New Jersey was very weak compared to Slippery When Wet. Adrenalize, very weak compared to Hysteria. Don't even get me started on Guns and Shithole. I mean, Appetite, if you want to say that was a good album, what the fuck was Lies? And then give me that bullshit, stupid Use Your Illusion crap. For this band to have 2 albums like this back to back is fucking unheard of. Both of these albums can never be overplayed for me. And those who don't like I Love It Loud, you better not be the ones who actually like Deuce. Because to me, there is no comparison. I Love It Loud is an anthem. It gets people's hands in the air. There is no comparison between that and even God of Thunder. If you're a Gene fan and you don't like this song, you're an idiot, in my opinion. Anyway, so that's my top 5. I do have a couple honorable mentions, and the first one being Animalize could have easily been on this list. Heavens on Fire is one of Paul's greatest songs. Might be one of the best rock metal songs of all time, at least within the top 20 or so. I've had enough Into the Fire. Unbelievable. Great song. I just couldn't put this on because there is a handful that I would skip, mostly, Gene stuff, but still, all in all, one of my favorite Kiss albums. And the other would be Love Gun. Yes, for those of you thinking I'm just a non makeup Kiss fan, no, I love all of Kiss. Um, Love Gun to me rivals Destroyer and could be interchangeable Destroyer depending on my mood. There's just a little bit too much iffy stuff on there for me. Mostly the Gene stuff, although I love Plaster Caster. Paul's unreal on this Tomorrow and Tonight. Of course, Love Gun, a legend. Um, I do absolutely love Then She Kissed Me, and I like Then He Kissed Me by the Crystals. So if you guys don't like it, you know, I don't care. Get it, got it, and go goose yourself. It's a great song. It's a great melody. It's a tribute to this style of music that kind of influenced these guys. The 40s, 50s, stuff like that. It's a great song. It always has been a great song. But other than that, it's I think I mentioned Charisma. I absolutely love Charisma. Or not Charisma, I'm sorry, Plaster Caster. Just thinking Dynasty here. But I love this album. It just fell short just because of, it didn't have as much listenability for me as far as going back and grabbing cuts here or there for compilations or whatever, but could have very easily been on my favorites. So that's it for now. I've got so much I'd love to get into with Kiss, but we'll see. This is Darren's show too, so we try to keep it on stuff we're both kind of have in common. But if I have to do some more of these solo gigs until he gets ready, then maybe we'll dig deeper into Kiss. If there's some kind of topic you'd like to have me discuss or something you'd like me to weigh in on, Kiss related, just let me know down in the comments. And until next time, thanks for listening.